All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I'm sorry for the lighting, and I look like shit, but I haven't quite figured out. I got this fucking TV from work, and it's blocking all of the natural light into this room, which is my main ally in recording. But that's okay. These are more functional than form. Yeah, let's get into the update. As far as health-wise, doing pretty good. Everything's going good. I'm still slacking on running, although I'm doing much better than I was in the past. I can now run for like an hour, hour and a half. That's my top. But I got to get up to not only 4-ish hours, but 26 fucking miles, and I have gotten like 5 at the peak. So that's not great, and the race is like 2 months away. So I have time, but the clock's ticking. But other than that, everything's going good. I'm definitely, I think, in the best shape I've ever been. I weigh the most while also being relatively the leanest that I've been. Maybe not at this exact moment. I haven't eaten today, and the last 2 days have been a little bit rough. I'm prioritizing some other things, so I have to divert my attention and my caloric spending strategically. You know how it is. But other than that, it's doing pretty good. And YouTube is going fucking nice, dude. I got a buddy of mine, actually, which I'm very excited about, working on the editing, so we're kind of collaborating there, and I've been pretty impressed. That was something that I was really looking forward to. I actually recorded an update that I didn't post because it was just me belly aching and boo-hooing about bullshit. But long story short, I've kind of grown tired of having my friendships based around only playtime. So every time that I'm hanging out with my friends, it's over an Xbox Live Party chat, which is all fine and good, and there's definitely fun to be had there. But the problem is there's no productivity, and so there's just this growth in the relationship that it just feels stagnant. It feels stagnant, and so I was looking for a way to engage in other more fulfilling and productive efforts with my friends, because they're all brilliant. They're my friends for a reason. I was looking for an answer for that, and then he hit me up and he was like, hey, I just edited this thing for my film school. What do you think? And then I was like, hey, would you like to edit some of mine as well? And so that's actually really nice. And on the same topic, I've got a call scheduled with them today, actually, which I'm also excited about, just to have our relationship not be completely tied to video games. It just feels like one side of the dice that I'm completely maximizing on, and everything else is just getting left behind. And so I just want to be able to talk to these guys at length, and I've actually done that with both of them at least once each, and it was great. We had a great time, and we've talked about doing it again, but this is definitely something that it's not for profit. It's just for us to hang out and talk about what's going on and what we think, and get to know each other, because that's something that is different. I used to live in an apartment. This one's going to be a long one, by the way. I have 2 things that are not going to be quick at all, so be prepared for that. But I used to live in an apartment with 2 of my buddies, and people would come over all the time, and we'd always be hanging out. We'd always be doing something together. And so when you have that, you can get so familiar with them, and it just grows the bond that you have. And so now that I'm on the opposite end of the country, it's more difficult to maintain and grow that bond. And that's something that I noticed when I first came back, or I first interact with people. First it was my family, and then it was my friends, but when I first interacted with them, it was weird. It was like we didn't know each other. And obviously that went away as the minutes and the hours passed by, but the initial reaction was like, whoa, this is not cool. I used to be able to talk to these guys about anything, and right now they kind of feel like strangers, and I can tell that they feel similarly about me. It's just this watchful eye of like, is this guy the same person that I used to know, or is something different? So yeah, so I'm looking forward to expanding our horizons a little bit, and being able to not only collaborate on projects, but even just have social time that is not tied to video games, because that's not really a good catalyst for social interaction. It's fun for sure, and it definitely has its place, but as far as the totality of what our bond is based on, I don't think that it is optimal, to say the least. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that for sure. As far as the studying goes, first off, reading has taken a bit of a dip, which is not ideal, but it's okay. This last couple weeks, I've really had to divert my attention to some other pressing matters, which is, yeah, not perfect, but it happens. It is what it is, and I'm allowing myself to have a little bit of grace in these things, which is also why I think I'm going to extend the study period of this month also through next month, because I'm really interested in the topic that I've been into so far, which is like early civilizations, Mesopotamia, Sumeria, kind of thing, that whole cradle of life, and then Egypt, and then the Indus Valley and stuff like that, has been pretty great to do, and I've kind of locked in a somewhat study habit now, which is I take all my notes on paper, and I have Khan Academy of all things. How many times did I use that in high school? And I was like, this fucking sucks, dude. I got to do this bullshit. But now it's like it's such a great starting point. But I just go through Khan Academy because they have entire lessons and segments on human history, and then I have a chat GPT page open so that I can I can pause the videos that they have and the articles that they have, and then research things on my own, questions that I have, and just kind of connect to what I'm learning. And then I'll have a couple pages open as well where I can do deeper dives. Like I've gotten completely sidetracked on this ziggurat that is like one of the first big structures in architecture in human history. Is crazy. They're such a marvel of early engineering and ingenuity that I've just gotten completely sidetracked on learning about them and their purpose and their function and their form and all that kind of things. And I will say that at first I was looking at it and I was like, dude, this is like the dragon mythology. It's like, how did cultures across the world build similar style buildings without ever coming in contact with each other? But one, some of these cultures probably did have contact with each other, and two, it's just like this. It's just a bottom-heavy piece of architecture, and of course, if you're just learning how to build things as a civilization, as a species, that's the most sturdy way to construct a building of large scale. It ain't a mud hut, right? So if you build it too tall, it's just going to topple over. But if you have it pyramiding up, then obviously it's going to be able to stand the test of time. So I had a little bit of a humbling moment there where I thought I was like, oh, but obviously it's not that crazy. But yeah, so I'm extending this period out because I got a little distracted, and then I've had other things going on. But I would like to keep and really understand, especially when I get to Egypt. That's going to be 2 weeks on its own, that I'm also very excited about. But yeah, so studying is going good. I'm pretty happy with this. Oh, and then the last part is that once I finish all my notes for the month, then I poured it into my Notion, and I can just condense, 50 pages or so of notes into like this much space, just through embedded links, pages, drop downs, bullet points, all that kind of stuff. I can just clean it up so nicely and preserve that information. So not only do I have the physical copy, but I also have the digital copy. So it's just more future proof in that way, that I can maintain these notes that I've taken and this knowledge that I'm preserving over the course of time. Makes it a more anti-fragile. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's also pretty exciting. Last thing on the semi-personal front, I got a garden update coming out. Probably should come out after this, I think. But I've completely renewed the garden and actually had this whole revelation about plant propagation that now I've just exponentially increased the number of plants that I have. It's pretty great. I've said this before, but I don't know if you can call it all agriculture, but just dealing with the natural life of this planet is so fulfilling endlessly. I literally never get tired of fucking around in the garden. And whether that's fruit-bearing plants or just house plants, there's just this marvel of life that it just keeps going, and that natural selection and evolution can form such crazy things. I have this elephant here that the leaves are going to be this big around. That's incredible. I have this kind of like a grass plant. I'm not really sure what it's called. If you look at it from the top down, it's green, like normal big leaf grass. But then if you look at it from the bottom, it's purple. What? It's crazy to me, the colors that develop just naturally in the wild, that outside of human intervention. I mean, some of it is human intervention, but a lot of it is just life doing its thing, and it just creates these awesome specimens that I can just have in my house. and I can just marvel at them every day and just be like, God damn, dude, this planet is fucking sick. It's so cool, right? But yeah, that's been a nice change, because before my balcony was just covered in old dead plants, and I was like, okay, I gotta clean this shit up. And then I started, and it just hasn't really stopped. It hasn't slowed down. I'm starting to slow down a little bit just because I'm running out of room, I'm running out of pots, and I'm running out of soil. There is a finite amount of that, and that does cost money. But based on my initial investment, I've gone pretty far. So that's a pretty exciting change that it's had. And it's also just nice to have plants around. Like if you go outside right now and sit, I got a chair out there on the patio, and if you go out there and sit, you're just surrounded by greenery, and it's pretty sick. It's pretty sick. I like it a lot. But yeah, that's it personally. So moving on to the other two things that I've been thinking about. We'll start with the first one. So I stumbled down a rabbit hole about government cheese, and I forget what they're called, but these government initiatives to steer public opinion based on resource control. And so, long story short, the government was in recognition of the fact that farmers are a main contributor to the health of the economy in the United States. The government was stimulating them by purchasing some amount of the excess that they produced, so that way, if they were producing too much, they didn't have to scale down to meet the needs of the market, and then when the market needed more, the farms fail. And that would lead to recession and depression and all that stuff. And so the government was stimulating them financially by purchasing their assets. And then I believe Carter came in and said, actually, we will buy any excess that you produce, not just a set amount. And so then farmers were like, well, holy fuck, dude. People are going to buy whatever we make, so let's just make as much as fucking possible. So then there's this massive boom in farming, and the government just keeps buying dairy especially. And it came to the point where the government's like, holy shit, we have so much milk we don't know what to do with, we have to make it shelf stable. So they started making cheese. And I believe as of 2012, the government had 3.4 billion pounds of cheese stored across America. They had like 500 million, and they just kept buying, and it just ramped up from there. And so they just had more than they knew what to do with. And this is not like tinfoil hat time. You can look this up. You can see pictures of the cheese vaults, which is pretty hilarious. But the main point there, steering it into the conclusion, if you remember the Got Milk commercials from my childhood, they were all over my high school. They were on, I don't know if they were on TV actually, but they were in magazines and everything. It would be celebrities with the milk mustache, and it would just say Got Milk. And it never really struck me as odd, but in thinking about it after watching this long documentary, it was never advertising a particular kind of milk or a brand or anything. It was just advertising milk in general. That milk is a good choice, milk is healthy, milk is good for you. And what that actually was the government trying to increase public interest in dairy products so that they could sell off all this excess that they had. So they could start leaking this stuff into the market. And that's largely in part why we have triple cheese pizza, stuffed crust, tons of mozzarella sticks. Pizza is as cheap as fuck because the government can institute programs to sell off this cheese in excess so that it's cheaper for producers to sell into the marketplace. And all of this coming on the back of advertising to steer and sway public opinion into making choices that favor the government. Now, is this totally nefarious? Obviously not. There's much worse choices for especially children to drink than milk and cheese and whatnot, but the point there being is that while this kind of was a symbiotic relationship, the fact that I was influenced to want milk subliminally throughout my childhood and want cheese and stuff like that to excess degrees for reasons I had no idea why. It was just, hey, go drink milk, go eat cheese, right? I don't like that. I don't like that a large part of my dietary choices, especially as a young person, was based on something that I had no idea what was going on. And so that kind of just leads me down the rabbit hole of If the government is making decisions such as this to steer public opinion and public choice, basically governing free will in ways that are so innocuous as cheese and just dairy consumption in general, what else are they doing it about? Again, I don't want to get into like, oh, this sinister cabal is shaping the way we make choices. That's how advertising works. But ultimately, the point is how important it is to free yourself from as much coercion from outside forces as possible through financial stability and freedom and education of your own will. Because obviously, colleges are necessary in some aspects, but there's a lot of education that you don't really get to choose what you're fed. And so that's why taking control of your finances and taking control of your own information, of your own education, is so much more obviously important to me now. It was to begin with, but this just adds another layer to the onion about how people are making choices for me, and I have no idea because I haven't taken the time or put in the effort to understand what's happening around me and within me, right? Because these choices that I felt like I was making because I just love milk, I just like eating cheese, how much of that is my taste profile and how much of that is having posters literally everywhere that I look with people that I look up to, celebrities, advertising milk. I'm just not a fan of that personally. And so to me, the only way to at least attempt to escape, the only way to gain as much control and autonomy over my life and my choices as possible is to be as educated as possible and as financially free from the system as possible. So then I can't just be pushed into the nearest cattle corner and my fate decided for me. So that was a big one. That was a big one recently. I was like, God damn! There was like a week where I just couldn't stop thinking about it. Like, fuck, dude, I gotta get my shit together because right now, anybody with enough authority could tell me anything, and if it sounded plausible enough or beneficial enough, I'd probably believe them, and that is not great for me personally. That I would just let someone lead me down a path. I'm an adult. You know what I mean? I have to be informed about the decisions that I make. And especially what comes time when I have children, am I just going to let the state decide what they know and what they purchase? Or am I going to teach them to do their own homework outside of the system and learn what path they want to follow based on their own informed judgment? So that's been a biggie. That's been a biggie lately, which again is just doubling down on things that I was already thinking about and already doing, but it does add a significant layer. The other thing, on more of a philosophical note, I've been thinking about this for a while, and it's funny because now that I've been keeping it at the front of my brain, I've been seeing it more often, and funny enough, I just watched Cars, the movie, last night, and it just reinforced all these things. But it's the significance of moments and our appreciation of them as they are occurring. Me especially, I fall prey to the race of life very often. It's always, especially me and my partner both are very forward center of mass. We're always leaning into the next evolution of our lives. And it is very exciting and very profitable, not just financially, but in every way. Going into new experiences and always be ready for the next thing and not stagnating into safety and comfort. Always being willing to face the next challenge. But something that I'm realizing is how important just the little experiences in life are. For example, this is a thing that really kind of tied this together for me initially, that wrapped it up into an actual concise and understandable idea, is when I first started bartending at the job that I'm at currently. The main morning bartender was having a baby, and so she was out for like 8 weeks. And so I got all of her morning shifts. And it just so happened to be at a time when there was not many other bartenders to share shifts with, and it was just on the tail end of busy season, so we were still getting like good enough customers to where I could make good money every day, but it was starting to slow down. And so every morning I'd come in, like 5 days a week, I'd come in and I'd set up the bar and I'd take, my time, and I'd set it up for like an hour to 2 hours, and I'd have that time almost entirely by myself. And if somebody did come in, of which there was a couple, not very many, but a couple, I had the free space and the time to just connect with them and be like, yo, what do you do? What do you do for work? Where are you coming from? Tell me about your family. Tell me about that tattoo. Tell me about this shirt that you got on. You know what I mean? And then, once you crack that egg, people that frequent bars or choose a bar over a table generally really like to talk, especially about themselves. And so you can kind of get in there and just really connect with what this person is about. So I was able to do that for several hours before the customer stream started flowing in. And then I get busy, and it was like, the normal fun things that come with being a bartender, just with a little less connection, because I have multiple guests to prioritize. And then right at the tail end of my shift, everyone would go home. The bar would clean itself up for me because it was almost dinner time, right? And so they'd be going home, they'd be getting ready for the rest of their day. So all I had to do was prep for the next person and then get the hell out of there, right? And I'd make good money every day. And even in those moments, I realized that not only is this exactness of my circumstances so finite in terms of time span, but it's so great. Like, I obviously appreciate this so much, and I know that it's not going to last forever. So I might as well really live within it. And it was awesome being able to take part of my mind and dedicate it to the appreciation of not only the moment that I'm having, but the understanding that it will be taken from me at some point. And not in any nefarious or sinister manner, but just that's what time does. It moves on. It keeps going, and things change. That is the nature of the universe. It just keeps going. And I'm going to rant on about this for a little bit, so, do with that what you will. But there's a part in Cars when Sally takes Lightning McQueen up to the top of Radiator Springs and just looks out over the beauty of the American West. And she talks about how this interstate was built and it cut through and just decimated this town. And, we spent the whole movie kind of appreciating the beauty of this town and the characters that live within it. And it just, that melancholy of time moving on without you is so real. And it's not, I think sometimes media likes to portray this as a bad thing, but it just is. Humans, every species in the world, including plants, are going to move on, they're going to evolve, and they're going to always seek out the next best thing. They're always going to seek out greater whatever circumstances for life to exist. And that means that the things that were beautiful are going to be left behind. And for something else, of course, that has its own beauty in its own way. But it is sad. It is sad to fully understand that, there are things that we take for granted every day that will be gone someday and will only exist in a memory. And that memory isn't quite the same as the moment itself. And so being able to, be eating a meal with my partner and laughing about the day that we just had and the times that we've had together, just living within that moment of like, there's going to be a time when we're both busy and there's kids and there's business and we're older and there's different responsibilities and we may not get this as often. And even if we do get it, it'll never be this exact moment. This moment will never repeat itself ever, ever. So to just really sink in and be like, wow, I'm so beyond blessed to have this experience right here and have the recognition of its limit and that it will be gone. As soon as this dinner's over, the circumstances have changed. Now it's on to watching a movie, or now it's on to me doing my own thing, or now it's on to the next whatever. And the emotional tone of that can completely distract you from that. And no matter how beautiful that dinner experience was, in 6 months I won't remember the rest of that night, I couldn't remember what we had talked about, right? It was not significant enough of a memory to store long term, but that doesn't mean that the moment itself was not beautiful. And I'm not sure if I'm articulating this entirely the way that I rationally understand it, but just being able to understand that no matter how seemingly inconsequential a short period of time is, the appreciation of it for the sake of it being its own thing, completely disconnected from everything else, and extremely likely to never repeat. You know, how beneficial would this have been for me when I was young? For me to be going through, especially my first 18 years before I had to leave the house and enter the world, to just sink in and savor all of the moments that I had as a child, as a young adult. You know, that would have been so huge. And obviously adults always tell you, oh, it goes by so quick, it'll be gone before you know it. But that doesn't mean shit. They don't say it with the conviction and the purpose of take time and live within these moments and really appreciate it for what it is, because it will be gone and you will never get it back. You can try for the rest of your life to savor again that 2-minute dance that you had with a pretty girl at a party, but you're never going to get that moment back, right? You're never going to get back the Friday night under the lights playing football with the team that you've been with for months or years, and sweat and blood and all these experiences together, in that last game of your senior season when you're out on the field with your family and you're saying goodbye to your teammates, savoring that and just feeling the glow of the lights and the humidity in the air and smelling the sweat of your brothers out there and feeling the dirt on your skin, just sinking into the physical and cerebral experience of that moment and just letting it take you. You know, I think the caveat here is I don't think that it's beneficial to live like this all the time, to just always be in awe of what's going on. I think that it's more of a secondary mindset that you can just periodically check in and appreciate the beauty of your current circumstances. But always keep moving forward. I think you can get lost in there. It's like, monks spend their entire lives in solitude, just, whatever they do up there. That's the opposite end of the coin. I think that it might be too much reflection. I'm not sure how much good actually comes out of that, and you're given this beautiful life and you're only experiencing yourself. I don't know. It seems like flawed ideology in my opinion. But whatever, I don't know shit. But yeah, that's been a big deal lately, and it's something that I'd like to take with me, and especially a lot of times when I stumble upon some kind of wisdom that I think is wisdom, I just think about my future generation and how, not only how little I was given. My parents had a lot of stuff going on, circumstances weren't great, and so that, they didn't really have the tools and the freedom that I have to just ponder, right? But now that I have that time to be able to preserve that and give it to my children, in not only this, but anything that I come to know, and be able to give them wisdom that I've experienced that they can use so much earlier than I can, because I cannot go back and give this to myself, right? Just to be able to give this to someone young and let them grow with that and adopt it and learn it and expand on it. We're going on fucking 40 minutes here, so I'm gonna leave you with that. But it's been a nice realization that I've enjoyed, and that I hope that I can preserve and continue to foster for the rest of my life. How much longer is life when you can appreciate the near infinity of small moments, right? Instead of just, oh, this year was pretty good, right? If I can think back and think about all these times that I've had, pretty good. But yeah, I will leave you with that. I've taken enough of both of our time. I think me doubly so, because I not only am recording this, but I also am going to watch this back at some time in the future. But yeah, hang in there and just think about all that stuff. And let me know what you think in the comments. But I will see you on the next one. Nick out.